Early in the week, a video went viral supposedly showing a New York City nurse. Technically, she's a physician's assistant, but I'll use the term nurse interchangeably. The point is, she was being a blatantly racist Karen by trying to take a rental bike from a group of black teens.
Help! Help me! Please help me!
It's not your bike.
Please help me!
It's not your bike. It's not your bike.
Please help me! Help!
Wait, you pulled it out? Hey, Hassan, you pulled it out? Hassan.
Now, of course, there's no prior context shown for what exactly created the situation that we're watching, but the headlines don't wait for that. She was clearly trying to take that bike from these upstanding young citizens of color. She was weaponizing her tears, in fact, an accusation repeated uncritically from Ben Crump, perhaps the country's foremost racial fraudster, merely because the teenagers in that video accused her of fake crying.
That's just not fake crying. It's fake crying. Stop fake crying.
Did this wicked woman treat black patients at the hospital? Clearly, because she disagreed with some black guys one time. That means her professional qualifications are suspect, because after all, since there were such cruel actions in that video, there must have been similarly cruel actions in her care at the hospital. Who knows how many black people she's probably secretly murdered at this point. But to be fair, this is a pretty outrageous story at first glance, so I get the initial surprise. White chick steals bike from black guy would be a shocking reversal of the stereotype, but if the Ben Crump promotion wasn't a dead giveaway, that is not at all what happened. The woman is now identified as 36-year-old Sarah Comrie, identified not just by the doxing of those accusing her of abuse, but identified by her own GoFundMe page launched for legal action and to clear her name. She is 6 months pregnant, and she works as a physician's assistant at Bellevue Hospital in Manhattan. On Friday, May 12th, after her shift, she went to a bike rental station to pick up a bike to ride home, and that's when the confrontation in the video happened. A group of 5 black teens approached her, claiming that she was actually taking their bike. And the video went viral, and before establishing who had actually rented the bike, her employer caved to the mob. The hospital called the video disturbing and put her on leave from her job. She was doxxed, and numerous Twitter posts celebrated her digital scalping, causing the nurse to delete her social media accounts. They went after not just her, but her husband too. They posted her address, saying she deserves the fear and anxiety that black people in general feel in these situations. This post, with 40,000 likes, challenged the nurse not to hide and to be as proud as she was when she weaponized her white lady tears and screamed help to get these young black men killed. That's what makes Chicago and Baltimore and the rest so deadly for young black men. Obviously, it's too many white chicks screaming help in public. But the thing is, this take isn't just a distortion of the whole story as it's now emerged. It's a distortion of the video as we could already see it. In the video, it's the teens who are verbally abusive to this woman, telling her that she's going to have a mentally challenged baby and themselves using the forbidden racial slur.
Fuck out of here.
Stop acting like that. Just take the bike.
Your baby gonna come out with
Wait.
fuck out of here.
But despite that evidence of indecency toward the woman, somehow this became uniquely a story of a Karen and not at all a story of a Tyrone. Speaking of retarded, that's what you have to be to believe that a pregnant woman would pick a fight with 5 young men for no reason other than she's very racist and very particular about which bike she rides. But even if your basic intuition failed you, like almost every story of supposed public racism, just wait a few days and the definitive debunking will emerge. The nurse's lawyer, Justin Marino, is now speaking publicly, not just telling the story, but providing the receipt to demonstrate who actually had the right to that bike. As documented from City Bike, the nurse booked a ride on bike number 5603915. That is the same number on the bike seen in the video. The receipt is for a $0 transaction, because the ride was canceled as a result of this confrontation after the heckling and the pressure from the young men. Marino has also provided a second receipt which shows she booked a second bike taken from the same station and used it to ride home after this encounter. Now, to the extent no similar evidence has been provided by the supposed victims in this case, the teenagers, I'm going to guess that this was not simply a mistake, that they honestly believed they had booked that bike to their account, and this was all some sort of good faith disagreement. Seems much more likely that this was just a way to score a free bike, wait for someone else to unlock it, and then bully them out of it. In other words, the story is likely the exact opposite of how it was reported. They were stealing this bike from her, but of course that is entirely speculative, based on nothing more than it making way more sense than the original story as presented. But even if this is just innocent confusion and not an attempt at malicious theft, it is amazing how the commitment to the narrative remains despite the demonstrated facts. It's not just how we jump to conclusions before all the facts are in. It's how we remain committed to those conclusions despite the facts. After speaking with the woman's lawyer, reporters on local ABC wondered why the woman didn't show her receipt in the video.
Well, now, nearly a week later, the woman claims she has a receipt for that bike.
So why didn't she say during all this, during the dust-up?
Yes, why didn't she say that very specific thing in the 90-second window from which you formed your entire opinion, for the same reasons that the video doesn't show her paying for and undocking that bike right beforehand, because the presentation is 1, incomplete, 2, very brief, and 3, intended to make her look bad. Regardless, even if she didn't say it in the moment, she's showing you the documentation now. So in what way was she wrong to fight for the bike that was hers? Yeah, well, she could have just surrendered. That's the next criticism in this report. Why didn't she allow these guys to just take her shit?
Why not withdraw from that situation and get another bike?
Yes, in hindsight, would she have preferred to, give up to the demand of those individuals and quickly go? Certainly. But while she was there, that was her bike. She had reserved it, and she had every right to take it.
Well, first, because if she allows these guys to take a bike on her account, she's liable for $1,200 when it presumably is not returned later. But much more importantly, you have no obligation to withdraw when people are abusing you. You have a moral obligation to stop them, actually. Why not just withdraw when criminals victimize you? Because when everybody does that, guess what? Criminals run your city. And who deserves that deference? And who deserves the scrutiny anyway? Should we demand more of the pregnant woman working an honest job and paying an honest fare? Or should we demand more of the aggressors trying to take advantage of her? And why isn't the same question asked of the teens? Why couldn't they just withdraw from the situation? Because you know what I would do if I was having an honest dispute with a pregnant woman about who had the right to a public accommodation? I would defer to the pregnant woman, as any decent man would, not demand that she defer to me and get physically aggressive with her. And actually, this woman is withdrawing, at least from the teens who aggressed upon her. Not only did she surrender the bike under dispute in the moment, but her lawyer now says she has no interest in going after these guys legally, and she hopes the best for them. Her GoFundMe page insists that she is a big fan of racial justice and equity activism. We'll see how that persuasion adjusts after a few more episodes of the racial justice and equity activism at her expense. Regardless, she says her intent in any legal action is to go after the publications that defamed her. Her lawyer says she wants to clear her name and implies there may be defamation lawsuits coming in that pursuit. For the rest of us, it's just another demonstration that a 90-second video claiming to show clear and convincing evidence of public racism is very commonly nothing of the sort, but even as presented, it's very interesting who's branded as overly fragile in this case. This woman is supposedly so fragile for publicly and correctly disagreeing with these black teenagers about whose bike this was, but these black teens aren't likewise fragile for supposedly being so damaged and threatened by such a petty dispute? Because if the premise of the viral tweets and the Doxing campaign is that black people are under constant public threat, And the best evidence you can provide is that a pregnant woman asked for help when confronted by multiple young black men trying to take her property. Well, let's all be honest in the assessment that the threat that you're claiming isn't very threatening at all. If this is the worst that you can show, you actually have it very comfortable. If we're so concerned about fragility, well, it doesn't get much more fragile than saying, an outnumbered pregnant woman once disagreed with me, and so I'm a victim for it. Please send reparations. In that scenario, just be thankful that you picked a fight with a pregnant woman and not a Marine vet, because at least in this case, you get a second chance. Though, of course, I'm not going to bet on that second chance being used wisely. Likewise, just be thankful for your upcoming White House visit, too. You really earned that free DC vacation. No, the headline isn't real. Yet, at least. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Minds, that is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.